Afternoon, everyone. I call the February 15, 2022 closed session meeting to order. Madam City Clerk, would you be kind enough as to read the instructions for the public to participate?
Mayor Jung. Oh, you want instructions? I'm already doing roll call. Sorry. Instructions for tonight. The public can access the live meetings online at fullerton.legistar.com or on any of our government cable channels. We will have limited seating available in the chambers, and you can also access to make public comment via Zoom, either online or telephone. And that is at zoom.us/join or call 1-669-900-9128. And your Zoom meeting ID is 978-4219-1797. And there is more information on the agenda.
Madam City Clerk, would you be kind enough as to call
And
the
now
roll?
I can do the roll. Mayor Chung.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
Here.
Councilmember Dunlap.
Here.
Councilmember Zara.
Here.
And Councilmember Silva will be joining shortly.
And we'll now hear public comments on any closed session items. Those who have, do we have any members of the public wishing to comment?
We have no one in chambers and no one raising their hand in Zoom.
Very well. We will now recess to closed session. Madam City Clerk, would you be kind enough to call the roll? Actually, please read the participation instructions. Excuse me. Give
That's
our
okay, I got
council
them out
some
of
time to
order
get
in
here.
closed session, so.
Exactly.
Fair enough. Thank you, Mayor. Tonight's meeting is accessible at fullerton.legistar.com or on our government, public government channels. You can also attend in person tonight, or if you prefer to make your public comments via Zoom, you can do that at zoom.us/join or call 1-669-900-9128. The ID number is 978-4219-1797, and all that information and more is available on our website with the agenda.
Very well. Would you be kind enough as to please call the roll?
Mayor Jung.
Present.
Councilmember Dunlap.
Here.
Councilmember Silva.
Here.
And I believe Councilmember Zara, here he is walking in right now, and Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker is in the vicinity.
He is in the vicinity indeed. This evening's invocation will be brought to us by the Islamic Institute of Orange County Director of Education and Outreach. Please introduce yourself, sir, and give us be kind enough as to give us the invocation this evening.
Sure, thank you. My name is Imam Mustafa Omar. I am the Director of Education and Outreach at the Islamic Institute of Orange County, and I'm the President of California Islamic University. So if whoever would like to, please join me as I pray. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. Our Lord, we thank you for allowing us to be here today, for giving us the health, the ability, and the technology, for allowing us to live in a land of abundance. Our Lord, show us the truth as truth and help us to follow it. Show us the false as false and prevent us from being deceived by it. Shower us with your mercy. Put in our hearts the generosity to want for others what we want for ourselves. Purify our hearts from greed, arrogance, hatred, and selfishness. Open our hearts so that we work with all those who promote the truth. Grant us strong and unified leadership. Give us the humility to realize our mistakes and to be regretful for them. Our Lord, let us put aside our own personal agendas to do that which pleases you. Our Lord, do not take us to account if we forget or we make a mistake. Our Lord, don't test us with more than we can bear. Pardon us, forgive us, and have mercy on us. Ameen. Thank you.
And sir, would you kindly give us some brief testimony about your outreach?
Sure. So I run a school called California Islamic University, which offers 22 different courses in the Islamic sciences, about the Quran, about the Hadith, about the history of Islam, about the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And also, we welcome visitors to our mosque every day. We have tours, we have pamphlets, we have people can come and ask any questions that they want about the religion of Islam. So I encourage anyone who wants to avail of that. There's a lot of misinformation about Islam, a lot of misunderstandings. So we're here to clear that up.
Well, we thank you for your good work and wish you all the best in your outreach, sir. Thank you very much this evening.
Thank you for
And
having
if
me.
I can call on Councilmember Dunlap, would you be kind enough to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, sir?
Thank you. Please rise. Hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman. Mr. City Attorney, do we have any reports from the closed session?
We have no reports from closed session. However, we did not complete closed session, so after the regular business of the city, we will go back into closed session to complete closed session, and then after, we do not anticipate any further announcements.
Very well, sir. Do any council members have ex parte communications to report? Seeing none, we'll move on to presentation. We have a presentation this evening from the Orange County Housing Finance Trust. Is Mr. Eliason here?
I don't believe they are present yet.
Okay, so we'll move past that, come back to them. Now it's time for public comments. Do we have any individuals wishing to make a public comment?
And we do have some on Zoom also when Bernard is finished.
All right, Mr. O, the floor is yours, sir.
Hello, my name is Bernard, and I am a Fullerton resident. Last year, this new city council majority created chaos by firing a city manager without a plan, hostility on the dais and towards staff showed us that cronyism is still alive by taking away a trail project just to benefit your developer campaign donor friend, and even appointed him to a sham redistricting committee to gerrymander our city. You tried to spend taxpayer funds to build yourselves vanity offices while our city is struggling, compromised our public safety and services by irresponsibly 2.5% cut and defunded needed police and staff positions. And this year, you want to start off by changing the council meetings to 5:30 when people are still at work and can't attend. Let's see what's next for this trio. Happy New Year. Go
Happy New Year.
Plains.
Next comment from Zoom.
And on Zoom, Jane Rand, you should be able to unmute.
Thank you, Lucinda. This is Jane. I just wanted to remind the community of the upcoming second redistricting public hearing on February 23rd, next Thursday night in City Council chambers. There's also, we've been writing about the community input in the Fullerton Observer, if you want to look at the latest edition, and the previous mid-February edition and the early March edition online or at newsstands at City Hall and your favorite grocery stores. Anyways, just want to make sure that the community knows that there's still community input opportunities. District elections at cityofFullerton.com. You can submit by email, even if you missed all those public hearings, even if you don't, all the public workshops. And even if you don't want to go to the public hearing. You can provide input through email, districtelections@cityoffullerton.com. As well, on the city's website, there's 4 mapping tools that you can use to also communicate about your neighborhood, where you live, what streets, define it by the streets and by landmarks, so that the demographer who isn't familiar with our city can identify the area you're talking about, and then talk about your community and what's significant about it, what kind of identifies or says something about your community. There's much more information from the demographer available on the links on the redistricting website. Sorry, lightning's kind of scary. On the redistricting website, you can listen to the workshops. There's the videos, or you can look at the presentations to learn more about that. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Next comment.
And we have one more hand raised. It is caller ending 9894. You should be able to unmute.
Yes, hi, this is Diane Venna. I just have a brief comment about tonight's meeting. I typically watch the meeting from access from your website, and for whatever reason tonight I can't do that, so I was wondering if you might be able to rectify that. Okay, thank you.
We'll certainly work on that. Are there any further public comments?
No further comments.
All right, we'll bring this back to council. Mr. City Manager, is there a way we can respond to Ms. Venna's request to try and figure out what's going on with the website?
Yes, we'll see if we can get that, see if Nisa can figure that one out.
Thank you, and you're welcome for the rain. I washed my car the other day, so it sounds like that seems to have a problem. That said, we'll do council reports. We'll start left to right if that's all right. Councilman Silva, anything to report, sir?
No, not at this time.
Very
Going to
good.
blank.
Councilman Dunlap?
Yeah, only thing I'll add is not city related, but congratulations on 5 straight wins over my Bruins in basketball, unfortunately. And the only thing I will add is that the last time the USC Trojans beat the Bruins 5 straight in basketball, I have to go back to my grandfather serving in the Navy in World War II. So that's how far it goes back. So enjoy it while you can, because it won't
I'm
last long.
gonna. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Nothing this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Very well, sir. Councilman Zara.
I just wanted to remind our community, if you'd like to enjoy a really great exhibit at our museum and support our museum. I know many people in our community love this museum, so this is a chance to come out and show support as well. We have the Jose Guadalupe Posada exhibit, and he is an iconic printmaker. If you don't know his work, you have seen it. If anybody is seeing this, this was his creation, the Catarina, and it has influenced artists throughout the generation, the 20th century and beyond. So the opening is this Saturday, the 19th, at 5:30, and there'll be music and food and entertainment, and you'll have a really wonderful experience. I've seen a sneak peek, and we had an opportunity to have a congresswoman from Mexico to come and visit, and we took her to the museum, and she was quite impressed and learned a little bit more than what she knew already about the culture in Mexico and the influence of Posada. So hope you can all join. Thank you.
All right, and congratulations to the Los Angeles Rams on winning the Super Bowl. Consent calendar is what's next. Any members of council wish to pull any items from the consent calendar?
I'd move the consent calendar.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Very good. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dunlap.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
Aye.
And Mayor Jung.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
We have no public hearing items this evening, regular business items. First one is the fiscal year 2022-23 work plan, city council input. So who is Director Chang here? Oh, I'm sorry.
I will actually handle this one.
All right, sir. You're up.
Thank you. As part of your budget development process for the next fiscal year, we are developing a work plan to be managed in conjunction with the budget that will be coming forward here later in the next few months. Each department is preparing a draft work plan, which I'm in the process of reviewing at this point. To help staff assess all potential work plan items for the budget, I'm asking council, as well as our commissions and committees, to provide input on the desired programs, services, and projects for the new fiscal year. We'll take this information, prepare an analysis of the cost and staff resources needed for each of these particular items, and bring them back to council for consideration and prioritization as part of an upcoming budget study session. Once the adopted work plan is incorporated as part of your budget, it'll become a measuring stick for how staff will manage going through the fiscal year. And this will give us an opportunity to direct staff priorities and workflow. If any new projects arise during the calendar year, or excuse me, during the fiscal year, council may look to adjust the work plan and by either adding the new item and or removing other items or delaying them so that we can maintain a balanced workflow through the year. I would recommend that staff also provide updates throughout the fiscal year, likely on a quarterly basis, to update you on progress and letting you know where things may be delayed or where we may be ahead of schedule. So I've included a few examples in your agenda report that you may want to consider, but I'm sure you have other items you may want to include. So I'd ask you to either provide input tonight to staff, or you can get those to me in writing over the next week or so, and that will allow us to incorporate those concepts and bring them back to you here at a later date.
Very well, thank you. We'll now hear, before we go to council questions or comments, we'll now hear public comment on this item. Are there any members of the public wishing to comment on this item?
We have no hands raised on Zoom.
Good, we'll bring it back to council. Any council members with comments or questions? Mr. Zara, councilman.
Yes, I think this may be the shortest council meeting we'll ever have. No, I just want to say I appreciate this particular item, and you know, we all have. I don't consider these projects necessarily for us, but what priorities are from our neighborhoods and what we're hearing from the residents. But certainly, I know that I appreciate this list, and we have. I think I've brought up a few of these, and I've heard this from other council members as well. So there's definitely a good comprehensive list that we can start off with. I do really believe that we need an economic development strategic plan. I think this is very important because that is something, if we invest in, will bring us dividends and revenue. And you know, in our culture, rain is a good omen. So, a good omen of wealth. So, and I do see here there's arts programs, which I appreciate. I see arts programs. I guess God doesn't want me to speak.
Well, Councilman Zara, would you like to come back to you?
No, I'll wait a minute. But our arts programs, I believe they are also part, in my opinion, part of an economic development strategic plan, because through arts you can create jobs locally, and then you can create attractions in the city that can bring in outside residents, and then, of course, park safety, I think, is important, and this is something we've heard from our residents over and over again. And up until, I think there was an event that's going to happen tomorrow at Richmond Park, and the residents, the Center for Healthy Neighborhoods had adopted that park, and they've cleaned it, but then immediately it got trashed. So, again, having a proactive park safety and maintenance program would be important. Anyway, I will wrap it up here. Thank you.
Very good. I thank our dear councilman for bearing through that. That wasn't easy. It was dreadful just from where I was sitting. Any other comments? Councilman Silva, go ahead, sir.
Yes, a couple of things I'd like to see that just came up recently is the whole concept of maybe having some sort of a consultant or in-house risk management person to see where our city is vulnerable in potential risks. I'd like to see if we can put that. I know that just came up recently. And I don't know if what they put on here, where did it go? The downtown block account, is that the same as a business improvement district?
No, it's really looking at the trash system where we have people paying into and sharing the costs. Looking at, is there a different model that might work more effectively?
Yeah. Well, I'd like to see us maybe look at bringing back the downtown business improvement district where we can better serve the downtown and, where they have more skin in the game, if you will. And I also like to see, I know we've been, we were ahead of the forefront in terms of the homeless situation. We've had the shelters and so forth. Just to see if we can move forward and maybe enforce some of our no camping ordinances now that we've got the facilities up and running, the physical facilities, and move some of these people into a better situation than they currently are. And I would agree that Parks and Rec is a big part in providing programs for our community, especially now since we've been under this pandemic where a lot of our kids, especially younger kids, are losing a lot. They're falling behind in their learning, in their education, just because they're at home. And if you guys have ever done it, it's a challenge to teach via Zoom, or even on the other side with the parents, to get your kids to sit there on a camera and learn. So I like to see if we can, have that in mind. Where how do we offer more services to our community so that we can not leave people behind? Thank you.
Very good, sir. Councilman Dunlap.
So I'll be brief. Roads and streets, roads and streets, roads and streets, roads and streets, roads and streets. And then, of course, I also think, public safety and economic development as well. We can expand upon those thoughts and ideas at a later point in time, but I think you get the point. Roads and streets, major priority, focusing on spending, allocating additional funding within the budget to fixing roads and streets, sustainable, I think, long-term plan. And that's what I like to see, and I'll leave it there for now.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, we've had earthquakes during council meetings before, but this is the first hailstorm that I recall. But I do want to say hail to the staff on putting this together and communicating this to us. I see some items that have been long delayed or stalled, and I'm glad to see that. I think it is time to start assertively moving in the right directions. But I have to echo what Councilmember Dunlap said as well. It's all about the asphalt right now. It really is.
Well, looks like, we've got some broad-based ideas on how to go. I agree with most of our council members. I think everybody agrees with the economic development, the importance of it. I'd also like to continue to assess city fees, any and all, assure cost recovery for all those services. If we're going to be a modern city, we need to have modernized fees. So, we got to walk the walk, talk the talk. So, cost efficiency, savings, performance audit, I've asked for that for a number of months, and I think we have clarity now, Mr. City Manager, on exactly what I'm looking for in that regard. And I do agree with Councilman Silva. We do need to risk manage it. But streets, I'm happy to put some overalls on, and I suppose, and get out there on my own as well. So you have some idea of what council's direction is. I think we can safely say that we're moving in a positive direction. Next item on our agenda is proposed ARPA spending plan. Obviously, Director Chang is not available to make this presentation, I suppose.
She is actually available online.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Hello,
Director
Mayor.
Chang.
There she is.
If the city clerk would allow me to share my
Oh,
screen,
I
would
apologize.
appreciate it.
I meant to do that, and then the hail took out our live manager server, but we're still limping along. We're still on the air. Okay. You should be able to share now.
Okay, wonderful. Try to get this up.
Go quick before our power goes out. There you are. Perfect.
Perfect. Okay. So, Mayor and City Council members, this presentation was a continuation from the prior meeting. The slide deck really has not changed. I'm just going to briefly review the recommendations for this evening. It is the request for City Council to provide direction on obligating and appropriating the remaining $16.5 million of unobligated ARPA funds. That's recommendation number 1. Recommendation 2 and 3 are more administrative in nature. Recommendation 2 authorizes the city manager or their designee to enter into agreements and issue purchase and change orders within the parameters of the approved spending plan and within the authorized budgetary limits. The last recommendation is really more of a ratification and obligation of $2 million of the $11.6 million that was within the city manager's level of authority to water main projects. And with that, I'm actually going to switch off of the presentation slides really quickly. So slides 8 and 9 are essentially the what city manager's recommendations were in terms of the remaining 16.5 to be obligated this evening. I'm actually going to switch to an Excel spreadsheet so we can take input and direction from City Council. And with that, we are ready for City Council direction on the remaining 16.5 million.
Yeah, and again, I've given you some additional thoughts. I hear the emphasis on streets in our community and understand that. The initial submittal to you was to try and give you a very balanced approach. If you go to a prioritization towards streets, I think there are several items that really need to be considered. First is making sure we have funding to cover the administrative costs. That portion is in there. If we don't need all of that amount, the balance would come back to council to appropriate that balance for other purposes. So that is a potential. I felt that a backup generator is necessary for an emergency shelter. The Quint fire truck is an item that we are going to very much need when the Goodman project comes on board in case you ever had a fire. And the apparatus it replaces, that particular piece right now is beyond its 20-year life, and that'll take a while to obtain. The subsidy program for water would actually help keep our water fund whole, and so we wouldn't have write-offs for that, and it would meet the needs for some of our residents. The Amherst Stadium netting is a risk management item and is an item that I think is needed. And then the last item that I would also point out is our fire station alerting system. That's a $300,000 cost item, but that is to notify our employees when there is an emergency that comes in. That particular system is beyond its useful life. We can't get anyone to work on it, and we cannot get parts for it, and so we need to replace that system. Regardless of whether we continue to keep the fire department or hand it over to OCFA, we would be utilizing the same system, so there's no problem with that. So with that, those are recommendations I have for you. Again, I gave you the original recommendation. If you were to prioritize these other items and want to shift the balance of the funds forward, that would still leave you with just over $15 million from ARPA going into your streets. That coupled with the $1 million from the county for Orange Thorpe, and also with your $5.1 million in your current budget, that would give you over $21 million going to streets this 1 year.
Okay, thank you. Before we take council comments and questions, let's bring it back to the public. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment?
And I see, we have one hand raised in Zoom also when we
Why
get
don't we
there.
take the Zoom hand while Mr. O is getting,
Okay.
making his way to the mic.
Caller ending 9894. You should be able to unmute.
Yes, hi, this is Diane Vanna. I just have a quick comment, which just goes along with the emails I sent. but I sent them so late, so I don't know if you had a chance to see it. I just would request that you use some of the ARPA money to restore the library services and staff. That is so very important to adults and children in our community. And I just want to make the comment about roads. I know roads are important, and people are always talking about that, but you can't correct it all at once. And there are other things that are every bit as important, like library services. And I think if to interpret that the community only wants roads fixed, I think that's a misinterpretation. If you ask them, do you want to do that to the detriment of library services? I think they'd say no. So I think roads are important, but there's so many other things that are important, including many of the things that the city manager just, delineated also. But I want to just put in a request for full library services. When you delay those, you're actually hurting the kids and the adults who, for whatever time they're delayed, would have benefited from them. So that's my comment tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, and your email was received. Mr. O.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
Hello, my name is Bernard, and I am a Fullerton resident. You already defunded needed police and public works positions and compromised our services. This money needs to be used to replenish our staffing and our services across all departments. This was the intention of this ARPA money. Councilmember Dunlap, to say that you want to use it all for roads is lazy and hypocritical. You just want to brag about how you fixed our roads, but this isn't your victory or even your doing. This is President Biden and the Democrats in Congress who passed the American Rescue Act that I'm sure you were against, but now you want to use it to hide the fact that you have no plan to generate sustainable revenue for our city. What about our library? What about public safety, our employees, business development? What happens after this one-time money is gone? What next, Councilmember Dunlap? Pass the staff recommendations and add money for our library and museum. Go Bruins.
All right, very good. Any other comments? Very well, we'll bring it back to council. Any council members have comments or questions? Councilman Zara, please.
Yeah, thank you. I do appreciate the calculations that our city acting city manager provided as far as road rehabilitation, and I do appreciate that, and I think it is very needed, and it would be great to see what we can do with this money. But I do share. I received a lot of comments, and I know many people are not here. We'll see if it's because of the time or the rain, but a lot of people are really worried about the library, and I think that if we ignore this, we are doing a disservice to a lot of low-income families and kids who and our general public who rely on the library. So I'd like to see that portion intact. I don't mind if there are other items here that could be put on the back burner in prioritizing certain things like streets. I'm okay with that. I just don't. I hope that we don't take away some of the services that are much needed now that have been depleted. The other thing I know that received a letter, I think, from the museum board chair. And I do want to say that the museum still is struggling and will have to rely a little bit over the next course of the next couple of years on us supporting it so that it can wean off the city as it seems where the consensus is going. But I'd like us, I don't know if this is going to be part of this or some other arrangements, but I definitely would like to see us revisit the museum funding. And I recall we had discussed that the last time when we talked about the museum, that we would review in I think six months. I forgot what the time period that we gave, but we would review it again. So I'd like us if we can review the museum funding one more time. But again, it doesn't have to be part of this as long as we reach some arrangement. Other than that, I'm okay with the staff recommendations. I'm okay if there's some sort of prioritization as long as our library services here are retained in this item. Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Councilman. Go ahead, Mr. City Manager.
Yes, last meeting, February 1st, Councilman Zara did raise questions about the library and what needs they had. This afternoon, I provided council with a copy of a memo that outlined that. And actually, what we actually have is a lot of funded positions that have been held vacant pending the final determination of the 2.5% reductions that the council has asked. So when we come back at your next meeting on March 1st, we will actually address that. Most of these positions that have been held vacant are actually funded. And I anticipate majority of them will actually be able to be filled. So going forward, I think we'll address a lot of the city librarians' needs and desires. There's some items that I'm going to be working with Chief Dunn on relative to IT computer needs, but that's a separate issue. But as far as staffing, I think we're actually going to be able to address most of those staffing needs.
That's positive news. That's a good thing.
I didn't get the memo. I guess I didn't check my email. I was rushed from my other work to here, so appreciate that. Thank you. That's good news.
Yeah, we'll all have an opportunity to review that memo. It's in good detail and it contains some really good information. Councilman Silva, do you have anything, sir?
Yeah, just some questions. I had asked the city manager, but I didn't print out my email. So on the slide, on your slide presentation, on slide 6, there was an item that said revenue. We have a revenue replacement now planned between 24 and 27 million that we're going to, in essence, allocate from the ARPA funds to revenue replacement. And then you recommended a maximum of $20 million. So if that's the case, I guess, how do we square that? And if we're estimating to spend 24 to 27 million, but we should only spend 20, how do we cut, I guess, the 4 million to bring it down to 20? So if you can just clarify that for me.
Okay.
That was on your slide 5 of the PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, I addressed that in my response back.
I know you
earlier
did, and I
today.
figured.
Basically, we started out at 32, and as we have seen the revenues increase with our TOT and sales tax revenues increase here, we've projected it's probably down around 24 million. What Ellis has done is said, let's be conservative and assume 20, just so we have some fudge factor in there. And so we've been able to adjust that and still work within these parameters.
Okay, yeah, 'cause when I had calculated all the revenue replacement items that were on these spreadsheets, it did go over 20. So that was why that question came up, if I can find it. But so we're not going to
and
be
we have some ability to adjust to some of the other categories to be able to shift items to still stay within that particular revenue replacement category.
Okay, I just didn't want to be in a situation where all of a sudden we had to drastically cut back. And
Yeah, no.
And
No,
then-
we should be fine on that.
The other question was regarding, again, I agree, when we all ran and we're knocking on doors, the biggest thing was fix the roads, and I understand we need to do that. And as right now, I think you said we've got about 21 million budgeted or allocated to fix roads in the next.
If you were to shift the recommendations under ARPA, that's how much you could have in this 1 year.
Right.
Well, it'd actually be over 2 fiscal years
Yeah, okay.
to complete that much work.
So I guess the question I have is when they list the categories, right, the expenditure categories, how does the street maintenance, street rehabilitation fit into category 6, revenue replacement? Just to clarify that, because all the other categories, there's some detail to them. It tells you what you can use them for, and this one is just as provisions of government services. So just to clarify, how does
Yeah, let me ask Ellis to address, because she's closer to this.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff. So, Councilmember Silva, within the revenue loss calculation, what we could potentially use under the revenue replacement category is it provides us the broadest category for eligible use. So revenue replacement is allowable to support and stabilize government operations. As the city manager had indicated earlier, just for to err on the side of being conservative, I think staff's recommendation is that we try to allocate what we can under revenue replacement around the 20 million mark, just because the revenue loss calculation could continue to change with subsequent fiscal year actuals coming in. Revenue replacement is allowable for pretty much anything that's related to government. There's only 4 items that revenue replacement is not eligible for. One is federal grant matching funds, debt service payments, increasing or replenishing reserves, and paying down pensions. So outside of those 4 areas, revenue replacement provides City Council the greatest amount of flexibility. So within that, the streets and roads would be eligible within that revenue replacement category.
Thank you.
Councilman, anything further, sir?
Yes, if I may.
course.
There was also, I guess, from the memo that I did glance at it today, the library.
Yeah.
We're going to be hopefully rehiring these. There was an item on our list of project programs, Tier 1, where there was an item that says citywide reinstallment of all non-regular staffing previously unbudgeted for in 2021, and it was going to take $1 million, I guess, to bring it back. How close are we to meeting that? I guess. I mean, does that, if we had that $1 million, we could bring our employees back. Where are we at with that?
Actually, we are holding so many vacant positions. I would not recommend just putting more money at that. We need to start filling the positions we have.
Okay.
Because this organization is not operating at the level that it will be once we fill the positions that are sitting vacant right now. We have a lot of funded vacant positions that we need to get those folks hired and back in here. And I think at that point, then taking stock going forward will make the most sense, rather than putting more money in, because we don't know what the real need is yet.
Okay. All right, and then one last thing. To me, as I think I said earlier, one of the things I want to look at is how does our city help our residents get back to a normal, if you will. And as a teacher, I've seen the learning loss that the students have endured and have, and I like to perhaps come back and look at what is it, Category 3 services to disproportionately impacted communities, and see if we can do something, again, especially to provide after-school programs, tutoring, something to some of these communities where we do have in Fullerton, I think it was 8 severely disadvantaged census tracts. District 4 and District 5 have the majority. There's one up in District 3 where I'm at. And in some of these areas where these census tracts are, these communities, disadvantaged communities, the resources from the parents are not there most of the time to offset some of that loss or some of the lack of schooling that the kids have got. So I would like to see us come back with something to address those needs, because they're real, they're out there. We see them. Speaking to teachers from elementary up to high school, the data in a few years is going to show that these 2 years here, there was a huge drop. So with that, I was wondering if we could maybe hold off on a couple of items and then see if we can hold off on them and look at putting some funding into Category 3. So I would like to see if we can hold off on the item on your list here, where did it go? Item 16 and item 21. That's $500,000 that I'd like to see if there's a way we can provide additional services in the Park and Rec.
You know, to your point, sir, we'll just go in order. It's not a long list. We've got
No,
a lot of
I know,
time.
but I'm just making my wishes
understand.
known right now. I mean, I do have the microphone right now, so that's one thing that I'd like to see. Just bring back something for involving Category 3 again. And then we'll go in order, and I'll speak to it again when we get there, but that's just to put it out there, because there is a lot of need out there.
Very good. Councilman Dunlap, any comments or questions? Sir?
Just a few things. I mean, first, is this something we're absolutely going to decide on tonight, considering, sounds like there's information related to open positions or positions being held open, they're going to be reviewed at the next council meeting. It might make sense if we're looking at funding here with respect to normal operating budget items, would it make sense to review those at that time, or should we go ahead and make the eliminations here on the fly and move forward? I mean,
I think it's best practices to move this forward.
Okay.
If we're going to continue items, we can individually and itemize that, but
Sure.
I think it's best practices for us to move forward.
Okay. Well, you know, I guess there are obviously a few things I'd like to kind of go over here. As my Bruin friend indicated, you know, or referred to, you know, about credit. You know, none of I don't think what we do up here is about getting credit. You know, the reality is, you'll appreciate that a fellow Bruin once said, "It's amazing the things that can be accomplished. You know, when you don't worry about who gets credit for them." And I think the reality is, you know, we're up here to deliberate on how Fullerton can best spend some of the funding that has been allocated by, you know, the federal government in this case. And so whether a decision that I'm making or how that might line up with something about taking credit, I mean, this is just silly. I think at the end of the day, when you prioritize and spend as best we can for the city, and if you look at what we were first allocated, I think we had 32.1 million total. We're now at half of that amount. You know, I had certainly originally hoped to spend, you know, north of $20 million on the roads and streets. And the reality is, you know, it looks like based on these calculations, if we approve as planned, you know, we'll be lucky to end up with, you know, a third of that amount. So, you know, look, I think as we look at this, I mean, you know, you've got funding allocated, and so some of this, you know, it's described in the staff report. I mean, the Arpa administration, those are overhead costs that are built into the administration of the funding, special reporting that's required. So I mean, that's not something we can get around. Or is that allocated to staff time to administer this?
You're going to have staff time, you're going to have auditors, you're going to have a variety of people. And again, that 1.3 million could come in less. Could it be 850,000 4 years down the road?
Sure.
Because it's going to be multiple years you're going to have to do this. And so this was staff's best estimate. Now, if we do end up with the savings there, then those funds at that point, the balance can be reallocated.
Okay.
By council.
Okay.
We would come back to you with that.
Yeah, you know, so I think from there, and I look at it, a lot of it, unfortunately, you know, I can tell you the amount that would move would be the street expense or the street repair cost, because it would be earmarked or allocated $10 million, and that would be that. And the reality is the other costs, I think, are, you know, placeholders in a budget at best, could potentially increase. And unfortunately, I think what we've seen recently with some of the costs, you know, we've seen projects increase in cost significantly as a result of inflation. So, you know, with that said, I think as we go down here, I mean, look, this is where I'm trying to understand too, what's absolutely required or not required. You know, I would rather not spend, you know, 1.4 million on the Arpa administration. I'd rather not, you know, kind of lump that. I'd rather spend that, make that 11.4 on the roads and streets. I'm okay with the fire department station alerting system. You know, the generator. I mean, if that's an absolute necessity, I don't know. I think we could wait on the fire truck, considering there's some other things that are ongoing right now related to fire. I think that, the cashiering utility billing system, I mean, that's related to the city's ability to collect payments online, right?
Yeah, Councilman, we're
so-
going to itemize this and go down the list, so, we'll be able to give some firm direction to staff, I think, this evening.
Oh, that's what, are we doing that now, or
Yes, sir.
when do we? So, I mean, I was just gonna go through my intention. I mean, unless whatever will get us out, if they can get us to a resolution, I think most expeditiously, you kind of know where I'm at on things, so those are my
Indeed.
thoughts.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
The people that we serve, that we represent, the ones who elected us here, have viewed streets as a major priority, and that was reflected, as was mentioned, in the last campaign. And whether or not there are campaign pledges or promises to be made, I think that hasn't changed. I think still streets are the big issue. For a long time in this city, our street repair replacement has been hobbled by the fact that we've relied predominantly, if not exclusively, on sparse dedicated funds, such as gas taxes, Measure M funds, and grants, and developer-funded improvements in streets. In fact, many years ago, I think the first time I served as mayor, about 9 years ago, there was a key individual in our Public Works Department who thought it was illegal for the city to willingly spend general fund monies on street repair. And that's partly because the way budgets are constructed nowadays. The idea of to apportion certain fixed amounts of revenue to a purpose, and then the discretionary part is general fund. So what's happened is we've shortchanged our streets over decades, actually. And general funds, to my knowledge, have not in recent decades been applied to urgent street, road, infrastructure needs. So here we have something in the ARPA funding where we have some flexibility in being able to do this. It's not going to affect what our normal flows and revenue streams are for all the usual general funded activities, be it library, be it public safety, be it any of those other areas, which are almost dedicated within general fund expenditures. So that's been the number one priority. It's been agreed to pretty much unanimously, but we continue to work through the ARPA fund, and we're still kicking that down the road. We're not dealing with the streets. To me, it's a little bit backwards the way that we're doing. We're whittling away the amount of money available to where we're going to have, just a remnant here of funding available for this pressing need. And I do have one question here, this number 9 on the screen right now at the top, water main replacements. That's an enterprise fund, our water department, and in large part this was used to justify step rate increases, water rate increases to cover infrastructure needs, and the people have been feeling those hikes. But now we want to reach into ARPA to go for, and I'm not saying they aren't needed, I'm sure that they are, but the idea of these things being supported by ratepayers has been really pretty much the rule. So what's the logic on that, Mr. City Manager?
Number 9?
That's 9 on
He's
top of
referencing
this
Orange Thorpe.
water main replacements.
The Orange Thorpe project that's listed in the agenda.
The top one there,
Well, let me
the
pull.
$2 million, right?
Oh, the $2 million one, that is just freeing up money so that you can utilize it to access the $1 million in county pavement funds for the stretch of Orange Thorpe between Lemon and Harbor. So we don't have $2 million laying around to do that water line that needs to be done. And if you can't change the water line, then you don't want to go pave that section of roadway because of our pavement moratorium.
Once again, we do have reserve funds that could be used instead.
So if you don't mind me
Sure.
adding some information about the water rates.
Sure.
So the water rates, you're absolutely right. We had an aggressive schedule of water rate increases. As you know, half the pipelines are failing roughly at the same time. And so while it's aggressive, it's not adequate enough. And when we go out into the arterials, it costs significantly more. We've promised our ratepayers a certain mileage delivered goal. And if we redirect the money to Orange Thorpe, which we can, we're then delaying whole residential neighborhoods of water line repairs and then we're not going to meet our goals that we promised the ratepayers. So that's part of the reason for the ask. This was a grant project that wasn't originally anticipated in the rate study.
Which is, again, the reason why I say this sounds like the type of an urgent need that reserve funds might be utilized for. And that would have the effect of, the short-term timing on this, of dealing with it. And it does sound like an urgent emergency need to be able to match, to be able to get that county funding as well.
Yeah. We've recommended not using reserve funds, especially
I understand.
Yeah.
But what you're recommending is using funding for anything but streets, as we keep working down this list. And again, I have big problems with that. It makes it hard to support even any of these other items.
Any other comments or questions, sir?
Not at the moment.
All
I
right,
guess.
very good. Councilman Zor.
Yes, just I don't have a problem with the water main replacement because I'm seeing this as part of our street rehab, because in order to fix the street, we've got to fix what's below it as well, and that's how our street maintenance program is working, is in tandem with our water, sewer, and pipeline repairs. So we can't fix what's above unless we fix that. So I don't see an issue with this particular one if we are to prioritize street rehabilitation. So, but I think, and we do access an extra $1 million towards streets, that if we don't use this, then we lose that $1 million. So I think it kind of balances itself out. And I do want to just also follow up on Councilman Silva's discussion on disadvantaged areas in our city. What I'd like, actually, and I do agree with Councilman Silva, I would love to see what other cities have done on this particular item, see what programs and what projects that they've provided, because that, I think, could give us an idea of what we could potentially do. So to the extent where you can maybe probe other city managers in different places and see what programs they've used under that particular category, it would be great.
There's a number of programs that could be considered under this category. I would personally suggest that you utilize and try and find another funding source or other grant funds for this purpose. Under the ARPA, there are significant requirements for administering these funds. And that means that if we were to grant these funds to another provider in the community, we have to administer that, because if they misuse the funds in any way, we are on the hook for those dollars. And so we have to have close oversight. We don't have staff to oversee new programs like this, and that's the challenge that we have right now. It's not that it's not a good idea. It's a great idea. It's just we don't have the staff resources to take on overseeing administration of new programs, which is what we would have to do. It isn't just a straight pass-through to another provider and then we're done with it. We have to continue to oversee and monitor that under the ARPA requirements.
What if, we do have some programs still, like we have a rent assistance program that we administer. We have a small business program, I believe, that we've administered, and we were able to do that.
We have in the past, but we no longer do that because we don't have the staffing to administer that.
I see. What about, we've got the Feed Fullerton program, which was very successful as well, and would that be able to be continued or funded again?
We'd have to assess whether we have the ability to do a new program again.
So if I may, just on that note, when you just earlier talked about how we're going to look to bring back some of these funded positions that we have out there before we can decide. So when we do that, are we going to be bringing back some of these people to implement maybe some of these programs? And we're talking about Parks and Rec, and we filled in the budgeted positions. Can we fill those positions where we run our own programs? I mean, we've done it in the past, obviously a long time ago.
Potentially, yes.
Potentially,
yes,
so,
yes.
Okay, so then following that, then I would still say, when we go through these items, let's hold off on some of that to see if filling in these vacancies provides us the opportunity to administer our own program, so we're not having to, go chase people and allocate, and hire or contract with the private sector.
Did you have anything further, Councilman Silva? All right, very good. I don't think there's an argument that can be made legitimately that we are operating at a service deficit in this city and have been doing so for quite some time. I also think that we can't assess the whole value, the true value of what those service deficits are without filling the already funded vacancy positions. So I think until that point happens and we begin to bring folks back to work in this city, a lot of this is pie in the sky discussion. We don't know the true funding that is required. We just don't know where we're at without those funded positions being filled. That said, there is no discussion that is required to be had about our pavement condition index. It is the lowest in Orange County, has been so for years. Just to maintain the existing paving condition index, this marginal, pitiful condition that we have right now will cost us an investment annually of $8 million. That's just to keep it as is. To marginally improve it is an annual investment of $11 million, all of which have not been done for years, which is why we sit where we are in our streets and roads. So I think there are things that we can consider as a deliberative body and have robust discussion over. And there are things that we just can't discuss because they're a fact. The costs are the costs of what they are, and they only will increase as we move along. So I think we need to all keep that in mind as we're moving forward. But that said, if there are no further questions, let's just go down in project rank order. And we will end with the water main replacement, if that's all right, with council. That'll be the last item we discuss. So the first on the list is the Arpa Administration. Staff has a projected cost of $1.37 million, and that is recommended. Do we have a motion and a second that's required for this?
I'll move that.
Okay.
I will second that one.
All right. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
If I may, though, would the idea that if this comes in under this projected budget, that money is freed up and comes back to us for discussion?
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
All right, very well.
Councilmember Dunlap.
No.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Zara.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
No.
And Mayor Jung.
Aye.
Okay, 3-2.
We'll skip the street rehabilitation for obvious reasons. We're going to need to do that last so we know exactly what amount we're using. So let's go to fire station alerting system. The projected cost of that is $300,000. Is there a motion and a second, or is there some lively discussion we can have on the matter?
I'll move this item.
Okay. Councilman, thank you. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
All right. There's no further discussion, Madam
You know,
City Clerk.
one question I would have, I mean, so it's a placeholder. I mean, is that pulled from a recent quote that somebody received in a neighboring city? I guess I'm trying to find, my concern is, hey, 300,000 gets approved, they come back in at 750. And, like if there's a condition like that, I think it should come back to us for consideration before we double down on, something that's.
Yeah, this is the best information I have is from the fire department on this cost.
Okay. Do we know if do we know where that cost came from, or?
I'm not aware of where it came from, but I would,
If it does cost more, we will come back to you for consideration.
Okay, and if there's the understanding that we'd reconsider items if they exceed the cost, then I'm okay with that.
All right, very good. Is there did we get a second?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Madam City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Dunlap.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
No.
And Mayor Jung.
Aye.
Passes 4-1.
The Fullerton Community Center portable generator is next. Approximate cost of that is $454,000. Is there consideration or lively debate we can have on this item? If not, I'm happy to entertain a motion in a second.
I would like just to ask if the city manager could, for the public, just explain the necessity of this.
Your Fullerton Community Center is a emergency shelter. If you have a major fire or earthquake or other disaster of some form, this facility would serve as a shelter for residents to come to. In that particular incident, you have a facility like this, you need to have backup power to operate the facility if you are without power. And it's nice to have a facility, but if it isn't functional in an emergency, it's of little use. And so the intent here is that you would normally have backup power in the form of an emergency generator. This would involve purchasing the generator as well as modifications to plug in the generator into your electrical panels to operate the building.
And so currently we have no generator.
No, you do not.
And what is usually the lifespan of these?
I'm not sure. It's probably at least 10, 15 years.
Any further questions from council or comments on this item? Then I would entertain a motion to give staff direction one way or the other.
So move.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second this.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dunlap.
No.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
No.
And Mayor Jung.
Aye.
Passes 3-2.
Next item is the fire department's request for a fire truck, Quint fire truck, and at an estimated cost of $850,000. If there is a council member that has any questions, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion and a second to provide direction one way or the other. Any members with questions?
Yeah, real quickly, just on this one, I think I read somewhere where we have to, well, if we agree to the now, we're going to have to wait a year or two to receive it because they've got to kind of manufacture it, if you will, put it together.
Yeah, when you purchase a piece of apparatus like this, it's a 18 to 24-month process to actually have it built and then shipped. Your current truck is a different style of truck. It pumps less water, and it doesn't have a 100-foot tower ladder, which is what you're going to need for projects like the Goodman project that's under construction. And so in this case, the current truck that you have, it was built or came into service in 1999 with a 20-year service. And so we're now in 2022. We know that we're at least 1.5 to 2 years out. So we're going to be 4 or 5 years beyond the life of this current truck before we would get a new one if you were to approve this tonight. So that's why it's of importance.
Is this the same truck that we had approved earlier so that we could take advantage of the raid and lock in a certain price? I know there was an item maybe a year or so ago.
Councilmember Silva, that was it was a very different fire apparatus. This Quint fire truck, I believe, and I think Kathy Schaefer could speak to this a little bit more, is that the Quint fire truck is needed for the industrial area in which the Goodman project area is being developed. The developer did contribute some monies towards the acquisition for the fire truck. Yeah. The request for the $850 is for the balance, so we could place the order, and so we can get that order in for delivery, as the city manager had indicated, about 18 months out from purchase order.
And just like anything else, if we put this on hold, if we order it next year, the prices are going to keep going up, it would seem. I mean, what everything else is doing.
It'll be that, plus it'll be the extended life of an old piece of equipment.
We haven't taken delivery of the one that was approved last year, right?
It takes time, I think, to get that done. I thought that it was
18 to
a
24
year.
months is what they say,
A
right?
year,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, so.
Right. So I would ask council to consider this perhaps if this is this may be a path forward for this. We are considering the possible integration with OCFA. That said, if we do plan on going to OCFA, and then that ultimately is the decision that council makes, and that's the will of the council, they do provide the funding for trucks. It is something that they're on the, for lack of a better term, hook for. So it may be of some value to defer this until we finalize the decision on that matter. And I think that matter we'll come to a conclusion on that matter within the next few months. I would find it very hard to believe that the cost of this revenue replacement item would be that much of an increase when we consider what the time frame is. So we're not talking about a year, we're talking about several months to deliberate whether or not this is the will of the council and the best move for our city. So if, not saying no, but perhaps continuing this and bringing it back at some point after we've made a conclusive decision on the matter. What are thoughts on that?
I'd move to continue.
I would say, I would just ask, so we have that scenario coming up where we may go to the OCFA. So they would automatically include this apparatus as part of their inventory, or would they charge us? Would that be an additional cost? Do we know?
It would be, this would be brought into their inventory. They would utilize it, and we would ultimately have to pay and contribute based upon the condition and age of our apparatus. That would be part of the proposal as to what our costs would be, because you're going to have to. They're going to continue to invest in all of your apparatus and have a fund for replacement. And if you're putting in a newer vehicle, that's going to make your contributions a little different than if you were going in with an old piece that needs to be replaced right away.
Okay. And we don't foresee, I don't know, I mean, again, you're right, it's not going to increase by millions or hundreds of thousands if we wait 2 months, but would we be okay with that in terms of the delay, 2 months, another 2 months to get it right?
Oh, you could wait a few months.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right, very good.
Just a quick question on waiting a few months. If we wait on this, where would we fund it later on if we are deciding to fund it? I mean, are we putting a hold on this amount of money to reconsider again later?
I think that's the best way, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right, I'm okay with that.
So is there a motion to continue this item and put the 850 estimated cost on hold?
I'd made that motion.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Is there a second? I'll second the item. Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Dunlap.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Zara.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
Aye.
And Mayor Jung.
Aye.
Passes 4-1.
Next item is cashiering utility bill general billing system upgrade.
Mr. Mayor, if I could speak to this particular item.
Please.
This is actually budgeted in your budget. And so this was a staff's attempt, my understanding, to actually provide some relief to our budget. This is an item, if you want to, we need this, but it's already in your budget, and we can go ahead and utilize our budgeted funds for this, if that's council's desire.
I think we'll know now, but I appreciate the clarification. And that said, does council have any questions or comments with regards to item number 13?
I say it's budgeted. We should use what's budgeted. Leave this money here for the roads and streets.
Is that a motion, sir?
Yes.
I would say, yeah, if it's budgeted, let's budget it. But I would also put a hole on this to see, again, when we come back with the rehiring, the filling of the empty positions, where else can we use this money to address specific items on our, expenditure category? So, yeah, I mean, if we have it, let's have it. But I would say let's put a hole on this until we come back to see what spots have been filled and can we provide other services that are needed to the city. To the residents.
Understood, Councilman. That sounds like a different motion than what the gentleman to your right, Councilman Dunlap, had requested. So is that a substitute motion?
I'll substitute motion to say put it on hold until we decide, until we know what vacant positions have been filled and if there's other uses for this.
Very good, sir.
That we may.
And I would second that, the idea that if when you bring back, when we do fill these positions and reconsider this amount, then, and if there's no need for it, we can just put it back in roads. I don't see why there's a rush to put everything in roads right now. We're not going to be fixing everything all at once. So I think we can come back and have this amount discussed later.
We haven't put anything in roads. And
Nope.
we're spending on everything but roads.
All right,
You don't
so,
understand why
be
there's a
discussing
rush.
the 10 million.
For 20 years, nobody's cared about it, nobody's invested in it, and finally, people are trying to take those steps, and it's like there's every obstacle put in place to prevent it from happening. I mean, it's
Even
It's
delaying
just-
roads to the very end so we can spend all this down in the meantime. But
let's get to the substitute motion. There's been a first, second, and if you can call the roll, Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Dunlap.
no.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
no,
And Mayor Jung.
No. So
Two
we
to three.
return back to the original motion from Councilman Dunlap of utilizing the funds that are already budgeted. Is there a second?
yes, second.
Very well. Madam City Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Yes, sir.
Is Councilman Dunlap, is there, would it be okay for you, I mean, I'd support putting this amount of money in the roads, but would it be okay for you if we take out 400,000, put it on hold, and we put $1 million into the roads?
No, I think, with some of the other adjustments that have been made to the budget, I don't think we need to allocate additional funds from this pot of money. I think there's plenty of funds and operations that could be used on potential other expenses. So I think I would prefer to just allocate the 1.4 to the roads and streets here. So I understand if I don't have your support, but would appreciate it if I do.
Any other comments? All right, very well. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dunlap.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
No.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dunlap. Mayor Pro Tem
Aye.
Dunlap. Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker. Sorry, I reverted to last year.
Aye.
I'm typing and talking at the same time. And Mayor Jung.
Aye.
Passes 4-1.
Next item's the Fullerton Series light replacement. The estimated cost of that replacement is $1.2 million. I'd entertain questions or concerns or comments from staff, council, and then we can move on to motion one way or the other in a second.
Just a question on these lights. I know you've said it before, but in general, where are these lights at? What part of the city, I guess, if we move forward with this, where would they land at?
Orange, Thorpe, and Highland, generally to the northwest in that neighborhood there. And there's about 100 lights under that particular circuit that's in that area. Again, you have a lot of series street lights. They're very dim. They're high voltage. They're not very reliable, and they use a lot of energy for a low level of lighting. So this would be just a start to the needs in here in the city. But again, you've gone many years without doing this, so you have many priorities, I understand.
Yeah.
But this would be a way to start addressing that in that particular area. You have lots of needs for security and safety in those kinds of neighborhoods that you would ultimately like to see better lighting in those neighborhoods.
Yeah, no, I'll move the item.
If I may, just to also
Councilman, sorry, go ahead, please.
Yes, just to clarify here. So this has been going on for a long time, where the transformers are owned by Edison, but we own the circuit, the lights, and there's an incompatibility now going on between the new transformers, and even though they invested in a few new of the old ones that still are compatible, but they do go out very quickly, and so that neighborhood is it goes extremely dark. It already, I mean, I don't think the lighting is adequate even if we fix this. But so it is a public safety. I see this as a revenue replacement here, but honestly, this is a public safety matter because when the lights go out, it gets really scary in those neighborhoods for the families there. But this, if I understand, the entire project to fix this is 10 times, 3 times more than it's a $35 million project, right? So this will get us what? Just the design?
No, the design is going to be done under the Noresco contract.
Okay.
This will hopefully deliver the replacement of the 100 lights.
Oh, it would?
Yes,
Okay.
taking out the transformer and establishing the light systems as any new subdivision would have. Each metered pedestal, a couple lights attached to it, not 100 designed almost like a old Christmas
Right.
series light.
Why wasn't this included in the NORESCO
It's
plan?
not, it isn't offset. The reduction in energy savings isn't enough money to offset the cost of this.
I see.
Any
There's
other
not a rate
questions, sir?
tariff that'll provide a savings for you.
Sure. Any other questions, Councilman Zara?
No, and I will second the item. This is
Very
an
good.
important project.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dunlap.
No.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
No.
And Councilmember Jung.
No. You know, I encourage our staff to find avenues of finding grants and funding from the legislature to do this. I'm sure it behooves the utility, Edison, to get these lights in order, just so they're compatible, as our fellow Councilman Zara had mentioned. Next item is.
Fortunately, there's no motivation from Edison.
Yeah.
to do
Understood.
that.
We pay for the replacement, right?
There's a lot of no
Yeah.
motivation all the way around. So next item's perimeter security fencing at Independence Park Swim Complex. That estimated cost is $450,000. If you have questions or concerns or comments from council, I'm happy to hear them, sir.
Mayor, this is the one item that I said earlier that I'd like to put this on hold to see if, when we come back, if we can, use that to do, educational assistance or even healthy childhood environment in terms of child care. So this item I would like to put on hold, and if we can use it in that item category 3, then, we'll be happy to bring it back and put it into roads.
So your motion is to put the $450,000 on hold.
Yes, until, we come back with the vacant positions that are filled and see if we can use this for the category 3 again, the services to disproportionately impacted communities.
Understood, sir. Is there a second?
If I may,
Of course.
can we have just an explanation on this project? Because I know there was some security issues at Independence Park, and I think this is a safety issue here that is quite real, if I believe.
There's been issues with individuals getting into the pool area, and so when FAST or other organizations show up with their young swimmers, and they're encountering these people that have climbed over the fence to get in, and it is a security concern from their perspective. So.
And are these the homeless population, the
Yes,
individuals?
that's correct.
So if we start enforcing that a little more, because we do have the facilities now, we might be able to handle that way. I mean, going out there and enforcing our lingering ordinance or the.
Yes, sir. However, the enforcement only results in a citation, so
Right.
their permanency of removal is not there unless they take our offer for services and get into
Right,
something
right.
like
No,
that.
yeah, that's always the case unless they take it, yeah.
And
How often is it happening?
I've heard several times, but I don't know exactly. Maybe the chief knows more.
It happens with relative frequency at the pool. The other problematic area in Independence Park where we see a lot of problems is in the skate park area because of its location. There's far more problems over there than there are at the pool.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I may, I went out when I went out to with a on the ride along. There was a lot of issues at Independence Park. It's definitely something that I would need to beef up security in whatever way we can. And I think so. I would support this because of that. I think it's a hot spot there.
So are you supporting Councilman Silva's motion, sir, or are you supporting the item?
No, I would support
The item?
The item, yes.
All right, very good, sir.
I have a question for clarity here. This says a spearhead fence. Is that just like the vertical bar, like almost like a wrought iron fence only?
Yeah, it would be trying to mitigate. I don't know that that's the exact design feature, but it needs to be something that is not readily climbable.
Or cut throughable, basically, right?
That's true.
Okay, so that's what I was wondering about, because if someone's so motivated to get through that, I've seen many chain link fences and everything else laid to waste.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
chain link is not a good solution.
And you'd only get a citation for that.
One last question. What part does FAST, I guess, play into this? I mean, they've got control of that. They have full use all the time. They're it's in essence is their facility. I mean, the city has no use for it really. So what part of when do they come in to?
And they don't have the financial resources to make capital improvements right now. They've been hit quite badly through the pandemic.
No, I understand that, but I mean, so could this be a loan to them? And when they start, just because I mean they're running the show there, the residents get maybe a half hour here, a half hour there of swim time, and every weekend it's competitions. It's fast.
You could negotiate services as a part of this as a potential.
So we're going to do this. I would say let's put a contingency on it that once they get up to speed, I mean we're subsidizing a private business with this. It seems like.
Well, I would ask council to consider the fact that we are entertaining a local organization's move to. That's partially funded already by our Assemblywoman, that they move to Independence Park. And I think if we're going to do all of these capital improvements to that park, I think we have to do that in conjunction with that move.
Right.
This notion that we're going to just part and parcel all of these ad hoc, I don't think I see value in that. So while I do appreciate Councilman Silva's motion to put the $450,000 on hold, and I certainly appreciate Councilman Zara's security concerns and the necessity of this. I don't doubt that this is necessary. I would at this time motion no on this item, and we address all of these security concerns and the capital improvements of this park at that point when the organization has gotten further along, and that would be my motion.
I'd second that.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
With that motion, so on the no, where does that money go to?
Streets and roads, as far as, well, right now, it doesn't go anywhere. We have to assign that money. So right now, it doesn't go anywhere.
It's on hold.
It is, right, until we assign it at some point, today or later, yeah.
Well, are we going to assign? We're going to assign it today. Let's just let it be part of that motion, right? But why?
Well, there's a lot of money here that needs to be still assigned, sir. So I think we have to kind of go through and figure out where the will is of council. Once that happens, I think the final item here is the number 2, street rehabilitation, and we can add up and appropriate that amount accordingly, if that makes sense.
Okay.
All right, sir. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Could you repeat the motion, please?
It is to, it's a no.
To reject the
Short and
item
sweet.
16?
Yes.
And the funding to be determined later.
Okay.
But it's a yes to support a no, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yes, correct. Okay, let's see if we all got this straight. Councilmember Dunlap.
Yes.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Zara.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
Yes.
And Mayor Jung.
Aye.
Passes 4-1.
Next is the utility subsidy program. It's to assist single-family residents financially impacted by COVID-19. I think this in particular was for our water, correct?
Mm-hmm. That's
and the cost of that estimated is $100,000. If any council members have concerns, questions, or comments, I'd certainly welcome them.
I'd make the motion for this.
Okay. Motion by Councilman Zara.
A second.
Very well. Any other comments or? All right, very well. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dunlap.
No.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
No.
And Mayor Jung.
Aye.
Passes 3-2.
Next is a reinstatement of non-regular staffing for passport services. This is the estimated cost of $30,000. I am certainly willing to and welcome council comments, questions, or concerns on this matter.
I'll move
Passport
this item.
service.
Would you mind consolidating, could we consolidate 18, 18? 19 and then 22, just because they're all related to library staff?
We could, if you'd like, then, and we certainly could do that right now.
Okay.
I will make that motion for
All right,
the
very good.
consolidated items.
Thank you. And is there a second?
You had second consolidated.
Very
I mean,
good.
yeah.
Let's take a vote on that and move forward.
To approve, that is, right?
Oh, no, that was just for discussion purposes.
For discussion purposes.
So-
So obviously, okay, let's go back to this item. Passport services are, by virtue of their definition, a revenue generator. The cost is nominal. So I would be in favor of this and happy to make the motion to move this forward.
Well, a quick question. What is the level of revenue right now from this activity?
The level of revenue, well, we're not bringing any in right now because we don't offer the service, but it will actually generate more than the cost of providing the service.
I bring it up only because pre-COVID, we were looking to renew our passports and tried to get service at the library and were sent to Placentia. So I do have concerns about the theory versus the reality of what a revenue generator this may be.
It was a significant generator in my last city, and I know that Ms. Collins and I have talked about it from her prior city, and it was a significant generator there as well.
Good, seems like a...
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I will say...
I think it's a shame when a council member gets sent to another city.
I know, well...
That I would agree,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I will say, to that point, I did not get sent to another city. I did get family passports there. But anyway, that said, the one thing I did want to point out, and the one reason I wanted to possibly consolidate these items, was that the city manager had pointed out that a lot of these items would likely be addressed in a potential budget review coming, I guess, at the next council meeting.
Yes.
And so a lot of these things, I mean, the one thing I will say, and Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I know I shared this with you, and I think in conversation, a lot of these items you look at and you wonder why pull from these funds to do this when something that could have or should have been done otherwise. If it's something that's already, whether it's earmarked or allocated or budgeted to happen under a normal operating budget, and it's just not. Again, this is like a one-time funding that we're taking these, really generally ongoing expenses out of. And so that's kind of just from my point of view. I mean, it's just somewhat frustrating to see that. And I think it would be much cleaner and much easier if they were handled like that as opposed to, presenting it from here, It's almost...
Well, we haven't discussed this, but I'm in agreement with you. These are like pulling the heartstrings kind of items that, in the context of a budget discussion, I would willingly support them.
And Mayor, did you make the motion?
I did.
I'll second.
Very well. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dunlap.
No.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
No.
And Mayor Jung.
Aye.
Passes 3-2.
Next is Children's Services Librarian. The cost of this is estimated at $100,000. While are there any council members that wish to comment?
I'm just going to say I was no on the last one, I'm no on this one, I'm no on the next one. Not because I don't support them, and I don't think we should have them. Clearly, we should. We've got the funding for them in our normal budget. I just don't think it should be pulled from here. It's cleaner and simple if we're able to allocate this towards other projects or more specific projects, not things that are occurring within the course of normal government business. So
would you say to continue this until we get our budget discussion?
That's exactly what I would like to do.
Your motion is to continue 19 and 22, correct, sir?
Mr. Mayor,
Right.
Yes.
these recommendations were before I knew that we actually had funded positions that were vacant in the budget. I didn't know that at the time I made the recommendations.
Understood.
And so that's
Understood.
the difference.
It makes perfect sense. So if, obviously, there's a motion for that. Second, I will.
So just to clarify,
please.
So you're saying, Mr. Manager, that these two items, we will be able to fund these without having to use this fund?
I believe so.
Okay.
Again, we will, after we go through the 2.5% reduction discussion at your next meeting, we'll know where we stand on all these library positions and
Very
what
well.
positions we can go higher. Because we have a number of vacant positions that are funded that are sitting vacant right now that I don't see an issue with being able to fill a number of these positions.
Very good.
Just for clarification, so on item 22, you said requested amount was 250, recommended was 50. So are we saying we're going to be able to in theory, might be able to fill the whole 250?
I don't know
versus
about the whole 250.
Okay.
I don't know about the whole 250.
So then, we might be able
But
to.
again, I think that we're going to be able to see a significant uptick in ability to serve the public with the funding that we have already in the budget.
All right, so if we put these in hold, when we come back, if we don't fill the 250, we might be able to use these to
Yeah.
supplement that 50, okay.
Indeed.
So this
the
is a
mo-
motion to put it on hold?
That's correct.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second?
Very well. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dunlap.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
Aye.
And Mayor Jung.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
So there are 4 items left on this wish list. Next item is Amherst Stadium netting. This is at an estimated cost of $150,000. And obviously, this is a hazard, presents, well, I won't encourage lawsuits to the city, so we'll just leave it at that. If there's any council comments or concerns or?
I'll just say, I'll move this because there was an incident at the golf course that the ball went through the fence and it cost the city some money a few years ago.
Councilman Silva, didn't we talk about not advocating that?
I know, I'm just saying, this is, I was gonna originally was gonna say no to this, but then I remember that golfing incident and a ball hit a lady in the face and.
Could have spared the visual there.
All right.
You know, the one comment I would have, obviously, this is shared with, I believe, Hope International. I think Fullerton Pony League uses it as well, and occasionally high school teams, on occasion. I'm wondering if there's the potential for some of the universities to potentially leverage sponsorships to help contribute towards some of that.
Well, they're already paying for the use of the field. In fact, they paid last year when they weren't able to play significantly, and so we've actually have them paying for use of the field already.
Okay, and that just goes
I
towards
think it's hard to
maintenance
have them
and-
pay for capital on top of that.
Sure.
I think that's probably difficult.
Okay.
That would be a bit
And
of
then
a stretch.
that's just going towards the ongoing operations, because I mean.
I
maintenance of the
believe
fields.
that's where the funds go. Meg, do you know?
They actually maintain the field, so the funds must go back into Parks and Rec.
Okay.
So is there any further discussion or questions from council?
I guess we generally have funding in the park fund available for it. Again, this is just something else that I would look at and say, why wait for now? If this is really, we talked a little bit about the risk management side of things earlier. There are plenty of areas of the city that have, healthy fund balances available, and so this, I think, would be one of them. I would say we should just pay this from the park account and leave the Parks and Rec
That's
fund.
good.
And,
That's a good question,
you know.
Councilman. So let's ask that. Do we know if there is park dwelling fees or funds available, or park funds available in particular, to cover this cost?
I don't know, and I'm not sure if Ellis has those figures at her fingertips.
Okay. So then I would motion. Go ahead, Ms. Director
park
Chang.
dwelling fees, I believe that there are a good portion that's already earmarked for some other projects. This $150,000 replacement of the netting is actually not included in the current budget. So it would be an additional request from general fund.
Thank you for the clarification. I think that makes it a lot clearer for everyone up here. So are there any other questions or comments from council members?
I just want to comment that I do want to see this done, but I don't want to see it done this way.
Any other comments? Okay, yeah, I will certainly entertain a motion one way or the other so we can move forward.
I'll move the item.
Is there a second?
What is the motion? I'm sorry.
To
approve it?
Spend the
Approve it.
150 on the netting.
Okay, I'll second. Madam
Okay.
City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dunlap.
No.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
No.
And Mayor Jung.
Aye.
Passes 3-2.
We are getting down to the nitty-gritty here. Next item on the list is swim scholarship funding for disadvantaged youth. It is a cost of $50,000.
I'll make the motion for this. I think
okay.
this is a small amount for disadvantaged youth. I think it would be worthy.
Motion from our Councilman Zara.
I'll second.
Second from our Councilman Silva. Before we go and take the roll, I did have a question. whose program is this swim scholarship going towards?
You would likely utilize FAST or someone like that, negotiate with them to have them provide this program.
And there's no grant money currently available to do something like this?
Not that we're aware of.
Okay.
That's always the kinds of things we would be looking for, though.
So surprising that there isn't anything available. This seems like such a worthwhile cause. So are there any comments or questions from council?
Just one comment. It's partly because of paid swim lessons at the facility is why it's not available for open swim for the rest of the public. So there is revenue being derived from that, and in my opinion, some of that revenue should be pledged to this.
Point well made, sir. We do have a motion and a second. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dunlap.
No.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
No.
And Mayor Jung.
No.
Fails 2-3.
And last two items is the water replacement fund for Orange Thorpe to replace the water mains there. I believe the cost was $2 million, correct? All right. Are there any questions or comments from council?
I'll move the item. I think we need it to be able to get Orange Thorpe all squared away up to Lemon.
I'll make the second. I think by putting in two, we're going to get one from the county, so it kind of balances out a little bit.
A little bit indeed. And
One second,
Councilman,
sorry.
go ahead.
No, I was trying to pull this up for the, which number are we on here? We skipped.
The
I was
very top
writing
one.
some notes.
The very top one, sir.
Oh, it's up on the screen there.
Oh, gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
You need my glasses?
Seriously, I might, yeah.
It happens.
It happens.
Okay, no comments, then Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dunlap.
No.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
No.
And Mayor Jung.
Aye.
Passes 3-2.
And finally, we are closing this out with street rehabilitation.
You know, Mr. Mayor, if I could, I did actually wanted to go back and, don't want to revisit an item necessarily, but I need to actually change a vote on an item. I was reviewing, I noticed that earlier the fire station alerting system had voted to support that. However, as we are currently reviewing the OCFA, basically I would just register a no on that. I think it's inconsequential to the outcome of the vote, but I wanted to change that vote, so that would be a no on that item from me.
Understood, sir. Yeah, are there any other changes that any other council members wish to make? All right, very good. So if we can get a calculation on the street rehabilitation, so far we've allocated $10 million, but with what we've approved and what we haven't approved, do we have somebody have a calculus of all of that, please?
Ellis, do you happen to have that?
There's a third column too on hold, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I apologize. Give me 1 minute, please. I'm just trying to calculate what's kind of left on hold so we can take that off the table.
And if I'm correct, the ones on hold are for those specific items too. So there is
The ones on
nothing,
hold right
there is
now,
nothing free on hold for anything new potentially.
That's correct. So
Yeah.
I think if the city clerk could confirm, on hold right now is the $850,000 for the Quint fire truck, meaning the money has not been earmarked and is going to be left unearmarked this evening. $100,000 for the children's librarian, as well as $50,000 for the reinstatement of librarian non-regular staffing. With that, we have available for designation this evening $13.1 million. That is still available to be obligated by
All
City
right,
Council.
are there any questions or comments from council? We now have the firm number available to us.
Look, I'll move to spend the 13.1 on roads and streets. The reality is, I think it's very frustrating that we started with 32 million and it's been whittled down to 13 million, which is a very small drop in the bucket. I think it's very frustrating, and just disappointing that we couldn't have spent more on our roads and streets. I know we've heard from people, we've talked about what's important, what we need to do, and the reality is this is kind of the one thing that just keeps coming up over and over and over. Of course, there are interest groups and communities that bring things forward and that are important for us to pay attention to and to address. But this is just something that I think time and time again, we consistently, just fail to invest the necessary dollars, and this is another example of that. I mean, look, starting at 32 and getting to it now just 13.1. And the reality is, had we not had, I think, the, kind of the ability to get through the, and make some of the, the cuts that we needed to, we wouldn't even have that 13.1 million. It would be much lower. So,
but I think that we got to note that the 32, we also use half of that to stabilize our services and our positions. So if we had done the whole 32, I think part of the city would have collapsed in terms of budget. We would have had to gone to deeper cuts. So, we tear up the city to allocate 32 million for roads where the city can't function. So, I mean, that's also got to be noted that, the 32 wasn't all for infrastructure. We had to use it for other necessities, the COVID expenditure, the public safety. So there was other things that we used that we needed to provide services. It wasn't just for items that we didn't need. So I think that's got to be noted too. But real quick, can you just tell me again, where do we get that extra 3.1 million from?
Well, 2.6
It's
was
from
from that
all the
first
other
line.
items that were not approved by city council this evening.
So 13, 14, and 16 then. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
If I may ask.
Councilman Zara, go ahead, sir.
For the streetlight replacement, this is a disadvantaged area. I think it's still under a disadvantaged community. I would encourage looking at any particular grants that may qualify for that, and I would hope that we can do that. And as far as the disadvantaged youth program, I think for the swim program, I'd love to see if we can do something. Look for grants and seek those grants. I really urge the council to reconsider that because it is, we're coming up this summer and I think it is a very small amount to consider and there are a lot of youth in our community that need to go back out into the community, into the fresh air after, this whole COVID situation that we've had. And I really would urge that we just take this small amount and invest it in our youth. And I would be very supportive of the rest to go towards street.
And I would echo those comments, Councilman Zara, but I would also say, as was noted, that the lighting replacement, I know we talked about looking elsewhere, but right now, the city's liable for those. If one of them goes out, we replace it, right? It's the city cost, and Edison doesn't come and fix it?
Well, the issue is that the transformer that actually powers the systems are no longer really supported. The manufacturer gave notice to Edison that they would no longer be made. They're also very customized, and so Edison struggles to get those transformers and to size them appropriately. And so it's not only Richmond NEP, which is this series, but there was recently one that was out for almost 3 months. So as these are failing, it is a serious investment it's $30 million investment in our infrastructure that's necessary. We will be pursuing grant funding, particularly in this area and any area that qualifies for disadvantage. We've asked Townsend to look as well as Noresco.
So right now, if a transformer goes out, it takes
It depends.
6 months to get it, and in the meantime, the streets are dark. I mean, the lights are out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, see, so that to me would seem an urgency too, because if it's taking 6 months of darkness to get these, and if they stop making them, at some point, and it's going to be at our cost to replace them, right?
To replace the series
yeah.
itself? Yes.
Yeah, it's our
Yes.
cost. Okay, so I would urge us to rethink that item, the electrical, the Fullerton series lighting replacement. And
Mr.
Mayor, I had
suggestion
moved that
might have is-
13.1.
One suggestion I might have is that if there's a way to have our legislators work with the PUC to actually force a new rate tier to be established for LED lighting, so we don't have just a one-size-fits-all for street lighting. And that would allow the capture of the energy savings to be applied to pay off a project potentially, sort of like your Noresco project. And there's just basically one street lighting tier that's out there by Edison right now. And that doesn't make sense when you're taking and converting from a high voltage system to a low voltage system.
Thank you for the information. We do have a motion from Councilman Dunlap to move the 13.1 million to street rehabilitation. Is there a second?
I'll second it. I'm not excited about it, but.
Very well. All right, Madam City Clerk, would you be kindly enough to call the roll?
Councilmember Dunlap.
Yes.
Councilmember Silva.
No.
Councilmember Zara.
Councilman Dunlap, are you sure you won't get 50,000 from this? It's a small amount.
No, it is a small amount, and there's plenty of money in the general fund that could pay for that. I don't believe that, this is not how these items should be coming to us. It's almost as though, it's an executive order, or it's it's a grocery list that's being presented to us. And, I think, look, we go through a very deliberate, drawn-out budgeting process where multiple departments bring to us each and every one of their capital needs, their, the personnel allocations that they need, and they're reviewed over the course of weeks and months in study sessions, in other public settings, and we're able to kind of get testimony from staff and the public as to what they're looking for, and also to weigh in on it ourselves as council members. And the reality is, it's frustrating to me that as we just went through that process, and we know what's available, within the current operating budget, where there's room. I mean, the reality is, there were 2.5% cuts proposed and approved that created additional spending capabilities within that budget. And so for $50,000, you're absolutely right. It shouldn't be on this. It should be paid for out of the budget. Because, a lot of these things, like were pointed out with the library, and as I made that point, look, I fully support the library, and it should be funded out of our operating, the general fund, the operating budget. It shouldn't be coming out of here. And so that's why. I mean, it's not, look, there's nothing preventing the city from doing that. And, look, I think for all intents and purposes, they should be doing that. It just shouldn't come out of here. And so
I don't disagree with you, but if we go back to the spirit of this law, the American Rescue Plan Act, part of it is to help our community. Part of it is to help people come out of COVID. So this would be almost symbolic in the spirit of this law. So it is a very small amount, and the same argument could be made towards our streets. We could look at our general fund and see what else we could allocate, and I'm open to that. But just so that we can have something that we can go home tonight and say we gave some disadvantaged youth something to look forward to in this summer.
Yeah, and this part is actually itemized in one of the spending categories, whereas street rehabilitation is not in their itemized expenditure categories. So we're almost doing a workaround to get that, whereas some of these items are specifically stated in the documents from the federal government. So I'm just on that, make that clear.
Councilman Dunlap, I'm supportive of this. I'm hoping that you can reciprocate a little bit, so that we can have, we can move forward with a good, solid majority vote here.
Look, I understand where you're coming from. I think for me, it's just a principle thing, and I would rather not do that at this point, considering we should be doing it out of the general fund or operating budget. And so,
would you then second would you agendize an item to bring this back as an agendized item for $50,000 from the general fund?
I don't know. Does it need to be agendized in order to? I mean, you think about how many items. I mean, gosh, from that standpoint, I believe that's under the amount. I mean, I'm not encouraging this, but I believe that amount is actually under the city manager's approval threshold. That if they determined that we're now, as an acting or interim. I don't know if that's something that you'd feel comfortable with, but I'm saying, I mean, these are the types of things where, there's oftentimes, you look at the expense register and you see the expenses that are incurred by the city, and you realize, hey, wait, I don't recall seeing that, or was that ever presented to us? Was that approved? And, oftentimes we see these large third-party consultants or other proposals and other, that are, kind of presented in conjunction with projects. But oftentimes there are one-time expenses that are incurred by the city that, really, for lack of a better word, kind of fly under the radar. And so I totally understand where you're at, what you're trying to accomplish, and I do support that. I just not with this spending. I think that's something that the city should just be doing, similar to the many other and really the rich Parks and Recs programming that are offered. The summer camps, the winter camps and things of that nature. There's no reason that shouldn't be included along with that and funded along with that. It shouldn't be coming from here.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would not want to hold my breath until the first time that I've seen on the council where general fund monies are dedicated to street repair and street replacement. That's why there is another avenue even beyond the budgeting situation. But, our regular annual budget is where the rubber meets the road, provided the road is still intact. And I think it's important that we keep our roads intact, even for public safety. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Well, I will not stop against. I want to fix our roads, and I appreciate the dialogue. I will also be supportive of this, but I hope that we can seek out funding, grant funding for some of these projects for our youth.
So heard, sir. Madam City Clerk, please continue the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
Aye.
And Mayor Jung.
Aye.
Passes 4-1.
Oh, I didn't say my aye.
Oh, sorry. Councilmember Zara.
Disappointingly, I was hoping for a spirit of reciprocity, but aye.
You said support. I took that as an aye. Apologies.
Okay.
And we will be returning back to our presentation this evening.
Yep.
We have a presentation from the Orange County Housing Finance Trust.
Mayor, if I may, I just need to get final authorization on recommendation 2. So recommendation 1 this evening, City Council has obligated the bulk of the 16.5 million. There's 1 million in the balance for future discussion and review. City Council has ratified the $2 million towards the water main replacements. That's recommendation number 3. We do need City Council authorization regarding recommendation number 2, which is to authorize the city manager or their designee to enter into any agreements and purchase orders to execute anything related to what was decided by City Council for ARPA expenditures.
Thank you.
I will move these two items.
Is there a second? I'll second. Go ahead and call the roll. Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Dunlap.
Sorry, which one is this? The recommendations here? Yeah, aye.
Councilmember Silva.
I'm just trying to.
Item number 2 and 3, right?
Well, recommendation
number
2?
And 3.
Okay, aye, yeah.
2 and 3, or just 2?
I believe you said 2 and 3 with your motion?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 and 3, yeah, okay, yes.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
No.
And Mayor Jung.
Wait, hold on here. 2 and 3 here. So does that supersede the discussion that was just? Is that
No.
because we had
Councilmember
13.1?
Dunlap,
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
Councilmember Dunlap, recommendation number 3 was already approved by City Council earlier when they had designated or ratified the $2 million towards water main replacement on the spreadsheet. The only remaining recommendation this evening is recommendation number 2. That requires City Council authorization to allow the city manager to enter into and execute any agreements and purchase orders with respect to items that City Council has already obligated with ARPA funding.
Thank you.
Okay, so
for
third
that
time for clarification. The item that was just
Number 2.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Okay.
That's where I was.
So do we need to change the motion? and the
I'll
second?
modify my motion
Thank you,
for
thank
item
you,
number 2
Councilman.
only.
Thank you. Is there a second? I'll second. Go ahead and please call the roll.
Councilmember Dunlap.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
Aye.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker.
No.
And Mayor Jung.
Aye.
Passes 4-1.
All right, back to Mr. Eliason. Sir, I appreciate your patience. Thank you very much. We look forward to your presentation, sir.
Okay.
You pointed at Anissa over here. Oh, and I put the right screen up.
Before you begin, so I'm sorry if I interrupt. Is it possible for city manager to send us a final list, just an email, just for our sakes, our records,
Yes.
of what we approved today?
Yes,
on this?
we'll get you something clear on all of that.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Eliason, good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for your time this evening. I promise this is a short presentation lasting no more than probably 5 minutes. But I felt it was important. My name is Adam Eelson. I'm the manager of the Orange County Housing Finance Trust. And the city of Fullerton joined the Orange County Housing Finance Trust almost 3 years ago. And I just felt it was important that I get a chance to come back to your city and give you kind of a return and report of what we've done since you adopted and approved to join the trust. Let me see if this clicker works. Here we go. So the Orange County Housing Finance Trust was created in March of 2019. We are a joint powers authority comprised of the County of Orange and 23 Orange County cities, including Fullerton. The purpose of the trust is to finance and help facilitate the construction of affordable housing throughout Orange County. The trust has a specific goal of contributing to the construction of 2,700 permanent supportive housing units by the year 2025. We share that same goal as the County of Orange, who established that goal in 2018. So since our founding 3 years ago, as I mentioned, we have 23 cities. Of the 34 cities that are in Orange County, we have a goal of attracting the remaining cities sometime this year. We have a strategic plan that includes outreach and efforts to contact all the remaining cities. We've adopted also a 5-year strategic plan that shows how we'll reach our goal of 2,700 new permanent supportive housing in the county. To date, we have made over $20 million in funding available to developers and have awarded funds to 13 projects throughout the county, totaling 901 new affordable housing since our formation. We've also been very active in reaching out to our member cities, affordable housing developers, and service providers and the public with information about the needs and opportunities for affordable housing within the county. And just specifically, the trust issued 2 notices of funding available, one in 2020, our first one, and a second one in 2021. We now, just a week ago, issued our 3rd notice of funding available. That notice is for $10.5 million. We do an outreach to our affordable housing developers who are active in Orange County, letting them know that these funds are available to add to the different capital sources they need to help develop projects. Without the trust, we would have missed out in Orange County on approximately $10 million of new funding that has come into Orange County as a result of the trust. The remaining funds that we've used for financing the development of affordable housing has come from county sources, mostly from a variety of sources that we've obtained. Let's see, so I'm just going to go to the next slide and show you that on our website, this is a screenshot of our website. It's an interesting site, gets a lot of attention because we can have people go onto this website and see kind of a report card of how we're progressing towards that goal of creating more affordable and permanent supportive housing. The map that you see there on the screen has these little push pins that show exactly where in the county all the different projects are, and it's a very interactive map. If you touch a push pin, it kind of, a box shows up and says where the project's located, how many units, when is it being constructed, or when did it finish, and you can just go zoom in and out and kind of look at things. On the left there, we just show this kind of matrix table of how we're moving along towards that 2,700 unit goal. I think we're right now approaching 50% approximately in one stage or another, under construction, done, or in the process of getting the additional funding sources that we need.
If I may,
Yeah.
quick question. So on that, if you go back to the previous slide, so a couple of things when this was when it was created was that we were going to have 2,700 and each city was going to do their fair share.
Yeah.
That was the understanding. So why is South County being so resistant? They've only got 100 units there, whereas the North and Central have a lot more. And are they going to do their fair share? Because that was the understanding. The 2,700 divided by 34 cities, give or take.
Right.
It doesn't look like we're going that way. And again, the North and the Central are doing the most. Is South County still denying that they have homeless situation down there?
Well, I can't speak for what they say. However, what we do in our notice, and our board has approved distributing the funds equally. We make the funds available equally at first, and then invite the developers to bring projects forward. We allow a certain amount of time for the developers to apply for those funds in South County and equally in all the different service planning areas. If they don't apply for funding, that funds roll into North and Central County service planning area.
So it may be that the 2,700 units are not going to be shared equally.
That may be true.
That's a problem then, because that was the intent. That's what some of the funding, the sales pitch they gave us, and some of the state legislators on that.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a problem, I think.
Part of the challenge that South County faces, and I'm not trying to make any excuses, I'm just giving you facts. The tax credit process, which funds most of these large affordable housing projects, looks at a variety of scoring metrics to be able to approve the funding. Part of those scoring metrics includes location to transit, location to hospitals, location to public parks and grocery stores and medical facilities. And what we're hearing from developers is, and not the cities, but the developers, is they struggle to find project sites that can score well in the tax credit process. Much easier to do in the more concentrated urban areas to be able to get the scoring they need. Without that tax credit financing, these projects couldn't be built. So I'm hearing that from the developers as a challenge.
Well, anyway, just no doubt that there's a big difference on the numbers. So hopefully they'll get better because.
Yep. And one of the things that, and I'm going to touch on it right now since it's relevant to your question. One of the things that we're doing is doing a state budget request using our Orange County delegation legislators to help us to be able to get access to some of the state surplus funds and bring them into Orange County, in essence, get our fair share. And we've heard similar concerns about making sure that the funds have a chance to get into all the areas of Orange County more so. And one of the things I think that would be helpful that I'm advocating with our board, if we were to get that funding, is to commit those funds for a longer period of time. In other words, park them. Usually state funds, when you get an allocation like that, have 5 years to spend the money. And so one of the ideas that we've talked about on a staff level is, if we were to get a large allocation like that, is to park and reserve the funding for, say, 2 years in each of the service planning areas. What that does is it allows for the developers and the cities to know the money is there before we have to spend the money in the 5-year total period of time. In essence, it gives the developers an assurance the money is there if you find a project site. Right now, what we do is we have the money, it's a very short period of time, we make it available, but if no applications come in during that funding cycle this year, then the money rolls into the other service planning areas. We think that if we were to get a large allocation, that would be something that we would like to entertain with our board.
Well, just on your comment about our fair share for Orange County, well, I think we should be applied to all three spots. They got to do their fair share because, it won't fly if Central and North are doing more.
Yeah.
And South County's still living under the impression that they don't have any homeless people, and they
Yeah.
will send them up north. and sneak them into Fullerton, Santa Ana, just like George Carter said, and you've seen it. So anyway, I'll stop there, but thank you.
Yep, I've heard your concern, and we hear that from others as well, and we're trying to take some action to be able to respond to that.
If I may, I have a quick question since you have the map up.
Yeah.
How much money and how many projects are in Fullerton?
We have not funded a project in Fullerton since our formation. We've had 2 funding cycles, and no developers have applied for funding in Fullerton.
Yeah, that's very strange. We were the first city to join.
We would love to fund a project in your city. We just need a developer to bring a project forward. We're a government funding source. So if a developer doesn't apply for funding, then we don't have an application.
Yeah, so I think Councilman Silva, I think what applies to South County applies to us here.
Well, no, we've done a lot more in the other area of shelters, navigation centers, programs of that.
Well, I think this evening you've all made the commercial for development here. So hopefully that changes in this cycle, and we find a suitable developer that finds a suitable project that they can put in our fair city. Go ahead, sir.
Yep. And just briefly, this slide is just meant to show you that we get a variety of sources of funding for both capital and administrative funding. The good news is, I've already mentioned the capital funding from a variety of sources, but on the administrative funding side, the first year that we were in operation, we were so new, we didn't have access to any grant funding. In the second year, we were successful at bringing in significant grant funding such that all of our member cities did not have to contribute to help fund the administrative efforts of the trust. So we're relying upon this grant funding that we've been able to successfully get. Just lastly, looking towards our future, I mentioned already that we're going after additional funding at the state level. We are contacting our member cities that haven't joined the trust yet. We have a couple of them that are putting that on their agenda in the next couple of months. We have a goal of getting that permanent supportive housing by 2025. That goal was done by a study back a while ago using point-in-time count to determine how many permanent supportive housing units are needed. And so we've been kind of following that goal and adopted, as I mentioned earlier, with the County of Orange. We continue to work with a lot of stakeholders in Orange County that are all involved. Some of you are aware of the efforts of Be Well Clinic on addiction and mental health services. They have the Be Well Clinic by Anaheim Stadium, and there's 2 other clinics similar to that are being planned. We have other stakeholders that are in the county that are doing efforts on like United Way of Orange County and others that are just doing phenomenal work. And I get a chance and privilege to sit at the table with many of those as we kind of collaboratively work together to figure out the affordable housing crisis and homeless issue that we're facing in Orange County. And the good news is that unlike some other areas up and down the state where the homeless situation and perhaps even the affordable housing crisis is unmanageable, we are sitting on a situation, I think, in Orange County that we can sit and talk with stakeholders and discuss real collaborative and beneficial efforts to work together and address this and make a significant impact in a very short near future. So I'm available for any questions you have, and that concludes my presentation.
Any other comments or questions from council? All right.
I appreciate Mayor Zhang being on our, I don't know if all of you know this, but he's on our board of directors, and his efforts this year have been helpful, and we really appreciate his comments and contribution.
All right, so we'll lobby him to make sure South County gets their fair share.
Yeah, there we
Sure.
go.
Absolutely. That said, I think that is our final item for the evening in terms of the regular schedule meeting. We do have to retire back into closed session. So I will.
And no report is anticipated out of closed session.
Very good. That said, I will adjourn the regular schedule meeting. We will see all of you folks. First meeting in March is March 1st, same bat time, same bat channel. Thank you. Good night, everyone. All right, we are back from the closed session. I'm going to adjourn the closed session, and there is no report being given to the public at this time. Thank you very much. Everybody have a good evening.